Let's have a look at making a vintage purse out of some tissue paper and some packaging paper. Hello and welcome to the Treasured Page. I'm Melanie and this is our quiet crafting space. Today I'm having a look at packaging paper and some gift wrap tissue paper. Very, very fine. This has already been scrunched up and was delivered to me in a parcel. It's a bit of a different colour being brown, so I kept hold of it for my vintage junk journaling. It's got a rip in it and is just junk. And same here, we've just got some packaging paper. This has just been in one of the parcel boxes, just protecting whatever was in it. So there we go. Those are two things really ready for the recycle bin. What I'm wanting to make is a tri-fold pouch, just folding one side in and then the other down in an envelope style pocket or pouch. So it's going to be something like that. But I want to use this as a bit of texture or a bit of decoration, maybe giving the feel of a fabric or even a leather. But also what I was inspired by were these pieces that I have in my fabric collection. They are remnant pieces from, I believe, some form of Indian sari dress, and they are really pretty. And so I've got that as my inspiration if I'm not able to use it on the piece, which I think would be beautiful, but I want to use that as my inspiration. Maybe I will cut elements off of it and decorate that. So I got those, so that was that. And then the other idea is to use in this project, because I have set the challenge this month to make a trifold pocket with the theme of vintage adventure. And here I've got some map of the Lake District in England, and actually the map is quite an interesting colour. I know that's upside down, but you can see that it's got some brown and orange tones in with the green. A little bit interesting, and I thought that that went quite nicely with this colour. So I'm going to look at that. Then the other idea here is, because we've been making these signatures to this size, the pocket has to be of a similar size or width. So I'm going to be able to get away with that here, so that's fine. So I'm having a look at my design here, and a moment ago I was just playing around, pulling this bit up and then pulling this bit down. And as I did it, you can see that the paper has not been folded straight. So we've got two lines there. We've got this bit here, and just this paper fold gave me an idea of doing a very different way of assembling this pouch. So it is going to appear like that. It will be a folded pouch or envelope pouch, but I'm thinking maybe we'll do something slightly different here. So if you'd like to play along and have a go at making a pouch, you're going to need some packaging paper, a scrap of tissue paper if you've got such a thing, and you're going to need some glue to glue it all together. And I'm going to be using a wet glue like a PVA or a Elmer's glue, Mod Podge, something like that. So I've got a cheap school glue here. I'm going to be using that, and I have got a brush to apply the glue. And what I'm going to do is just get my correct measurement first for the paper, and I'm going to use this as my guide. All right, I've cut a piece of my paper here and it is looking like that. And this was the signature size that I'm making, so 11 centimetres by 21 centimetres. So that's 8 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. That is the measurement that I'm going for this project. Got my signature here, and I would like my purse to end up being a very, very similar size, either smaller or the exact same size. So for this, I would be bringing this up, and I would be gluing that shut if I was just making a purse or a pocket exactly to this measurement, and then I would bring my fold over the top and that would be fine. And then I'd just work out how much I'd actually need to trim that down to be an exact match here. But then I've been thinking something slightly different. What I think I will do is fold this piece of paper in half, and then I'm going to fold it down like that. So we're still getting the same look, but we've doubled the paper up. If you'd like to know the measurement of this, it's 35 centimetres across. And then we've got the same width here, which was 21 centimetres. That's about 13 3/4 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my paper up like that, and then I'm going to bring it down. That's going to be the style of how I make this fold. This is going to be my substrate layer for my tissue paper to be glued onto. I want to keep the project really thin, so I'm just working with thin packaging paper. Okay, I'm using my glue directly onto my paper here, and I'm just going to spread it out with the paintbrush and make sure that I get it right up to the edges. Okay, I've got that nicely covered now. So I'm bringing in my tissue paper, and it's just about the right size. So this could be any colour tissue paper. Don't worry if you haven't got brown. You could always go over with a paint colour, ink or a tin. If you've only got white tissue paper, then that would be great. You could just paint over the top of that, maybe ink it. Any colour tissue paper would work for this. So we're getting a nice crinkled effect there. And I'll just bring it round this way, and then we can just make sure that it's stuck. Cut that away. This would work with napkin, this would work with scrunched up wrapping paper, this would work with the sort of packaging paper that gets stuffed into shoes or bags, and you could then add some ink over the top of it to create the colour. So I'm working with this colour to begin with, and I'm getting this lovely crinkled texture all over it. So it does actually look a little bit reminiscent of leather. This is one way of making a pouch. There are plenty of ways of going about this, lots of fabric ways, but I just wanted to show you a really nice junk journal alternative. This is great if anyone's doing a woodland themed journal or fairy themed journal, anything to do with nature. Looks like it could be bark or a leaf. Anything to do with autumn and fall would work. And then if you pull that down and look at how that's appearing, that's really interesting, and already looks quite nice if you were to do one of these nature journals. So that's quite fun. Okay, so I'm just putting this off to one side, having a look at this map. I'm going to open it up, and I want to take a section of the map here, and I'm just going to go for it and cut along here. This is a double layer, so I'm just going to... Alright, I'm tearing down the map to get a piece that I'm happy with. I need it to be the same as this, so I just make a mark there, and then so it's an Ordnance Survey map. It's quite thick paper. Okay, I've got my map, and now I want to stick it here, and then we'll just add the glue to the back of the project where we've already started. I've added a nice generous amount of glue there. If you're using a PVA glue and you're giving it a nice thick coat, then it's going to stick well, and it's also going to add a little bit of strength and flexibility to the project. Okay, I'm happy that that is well covered, so I'm going to add down my map. So I'm just using the bone folder here, really making sure that that has stuck down. And now I have to leave it. I need that to all bond together, and then we can trim it down, and then we can put in our folds. Okay, we'll just get rid of any sticky glue. And now I'm bringing back in my pieces of inspiration, looking at the patterning there and thinking that I definitely want to use gold onto the brown background, and I'm thinking that stenciling would be a way to go. So just so we can see it, I've got the Stampers Anonymous stencil here from the Tim Holtz collection. I love this swirling botanical stencil, so I think that that would look really nice and maybe have some gold effect in there. I have looked at this and I just love the gold and the browns together, so I want to try and get some gold in there, but I don't have a gold ink pad, so I'm going to have to look at something slightly different. Alright, so this has dried. It's looking really nice. It's retained its texture and its crinkle. This was just packaging tissue paper, so it was nothing special, and there's nothing to stop you using decorative tissue paper as well. So we could have a go at something like this, maybe a decorative tissue paper or a decoupage paper, something like that would work really nicely. And I've also got this for decorative wrapping. So before I do this one, I want to just check whether I needed the packaging paper layer or whether I could have got away with just putting it straight onto the map paper. Now we could have put it straight down onto the map paper, but I just want to check whether the differences in paper have an impact on what I plan to do next. So what I would like to do is first decorate it, and then I've got a plan to soften up the paper, but I think I need to decorate it first. For the next part, I'm going to tape down my stencil using washi tape. As I don't have any ink from an ink pad to be able to stencil in my usual method, which would be using a makeup brush and an ink pad or a ink blending tool, I'm going to improvise, and I'm going to use my gold gilding wax paste and an old cloth, and I'm just going to try and achieve a sort of burnished gold look on top of the tissue paper here using this stencil. So I'm going to just dab it on gently, and then I can work it round a little bit more. I don't want to have any great big globs of this gold, but I think I might end up with quite an interesting texture on the cloth as well. So I'm just going to be pushing this through the stencil, just using the cloth and slowly working my way round, trying to get the gold onto there. This is a nice fun way of decorating something. It's already got a bit of texture, but the gold is picking up the raised wrinkles and ruffles of the tissue paper underneath, and it's actually really relaxing and quite fun. So we're just going around. Feels like a familiar action, maybe polishing something using furniture wax or something like that from when I used to help my mother when we were younger. Feels like I'm cleaning or polishing something and bringing back a shine, and I quite like to do that. I remember with my mother and my grandmother, we used to, make some pots shiny with the special cleaning products, using a cloth just like this and getting something nice and shiny. It used to be something that happened around the fireplace. I think we had some brass plate things that used to go around a horse's tack, and then the brass image, the little brass metal pieces used to hang on something around a fireplace, I seem to remember, and there was a method to cleaning them, and it just feels very reminiscent of that. And I'm not looking for clear, crisp definition here, because I want this to look like a very much old vintage piece, maybe something from the Edwardian era. So let's have a look. That's really nice. Lovely hint there of the decorative gold coming through. And now I'm going to see if I can match the image up a bit. And here it is. There we go. Oh, I'm really pleased with that. So there's the little cloth there with the gold gilding wax on it. And I was using Empire Gold by PBO gilding wax. It's got a bit of an odd smell to it, it is like a furniture polish. But it's brilliant and it dries, and then it doesn't move once it's dried, so it's quite quick to dry and it's permanent. And I have thoroughly enjoyed that, and I'm really pleased with the effect. So from here, what we've learned is how to make some really nice paper from very little, just by backing some tissue paper onto some packaging paper and then applying some gold wax into our stencils. You can see that you could make all sorts, tickets, tags, pockets, tucks, anything. We've created a brand new material. All right, so this is where we've got with it so far. Okay, so here's my paper back from the trimmer, looking really smart. Now, if I were to use this as we intended to make just this simple envelope pocket, we'd be looking at something like that. And that's actually quite a stiff piece of card now. It feels like a lightweight card, and it's quite rigid, and it's quite far away from where I want with my purse idea. So what I want, although it looks like a leather and actually really quite nice in its detail, it's also a little bit too stiff. So I want to try and soften this up, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to introduce some scrunch creases and crinkles, and just manipulating the paper into submission, which is going to make it feel more like a pliable fabric or even a soft leather. Of course it isn't, it is just paper. So I'm just using Momigami methods here by scrunching up the paper in order to make a fabric, but the paper is a little bit brittle because this is vintage, so I have to go quite carefully with it, just pushing in some gentle creases to start with, and then we'll be able to just manipulate those fibres into something more pliable and more workable. I'm not adding anything here. I suppose a spray of water might help this process. When you're doing traditional Momigami methods of scrunching the paper, they would be adding in a starch mix, a particular starch flour that comes from a particular plant, and that is something to look into for future. You may have seen Momigami with oils and hand creams and things like that, but I don't want to add any oil to my project. If I start adding oil, I'm fearful that in time the oil will take on a rancid smell or something. It is possible whenever we use things from the kitchen or things from our cosmetics. Everything has a shelf life. And if you're looking to make something with a bit of longevity and you want to keep it, I always think it's best to try and avoid food products where possible. But do the research, because there's lots of ways in which we can manipulate papers and add products to it, maybe glycerine or maybe a mineral oil, something that doesn't go rancid. Also in danger of ripping it, like I've just done there, but this is going to be a bit more of a rustic piece, so I'm not worried. I'm just going to add a little spritz of water just to see if that helps. It helps a little bit. Just doing this. It is quite therapeutic to just be able to scrunch this paper up. The more I work it, the softer it becomes, the easier it will be to pull this about. And I just want to make sure that I don't lose the definition too much of the old map on here. I want to be able to see the map when we open up the pocket or the pouch or the bag, and how we're going to have that is going to be similar to this. It's going to be like this. So it's going to have I'm going to make sure it's a little bit better. We're going to sew it down there, but we're going to have some edging here. And what will happen is you'll open the bag like that and be able to get into it this way. So these edges will be sewn. We'll finish off the edge here, and actually the bag is going to be there. You'll see the inside. I'm going to put some inking around, make this into more of an aged effect, and then it will close like that with some interesting detailing or trim across these two pieces here. Okay, so it's a hot mess at the moment. I've got some lace at the ready to hopefully tidy it up at the end. It's a little bit damp with some spray water. We've got the repair going on there, and whilst it's damp, just literally damp enough to be movable, I'm going to run some stitches down the side here and here, and then I'm hopeful I'll be able to turn my bag inside out without tearing the lot. But I don't think I would be able to do this if I hadn't done the 3 layers. So that was the tissue paper, the packaging paper and the map paper. If I had anything thinner than that, I wouldn't be able to manipulate it in this way and expect it to stay intact. So we will see. It could be that it puts a lot of tension at the top with the sewing. It's going to appear like this, and from here I'll be able to decorate 2 pieces, this top piece and this bottom piece, and then when we open it up we'll be able to get into the whole bag. So that's the plan. I've got to remember where I wanted this piece, so I can see here that it's this part of the map, and that's the bit that I will now be flipping around like this and making sure that it is longer than the bit underneath. So hopefully that should work out, and if it doesn't, we'll make it work. We'll just trim off a bit and make it work. So whilst it's still damp, I'm going to just run my stitching down the outside and we'll see how this goes. Okay, back from the sewing machine. This is going to be the inner lining with this vintage map. It's got some stain and marking on it. It doesn't look great at the moment because it is a little bit damp. When that dries out, it'll look all the more interesting, I'm sure. And here on the other side as well. So what I'm going to do now, moment of truth, is to try and turn this right side out, treating it like a piece of fabric as if we were making a bag. And if you have no skills in sewing whatsoever and this really frightens you and you wouldn't be doing this, then you can of course glue down here with a strong Fabri-Tac glue and you could still have a go at this, but make sure that your paper is a little bit damp. Not wet, but damp, just enough to try and turn this inside out. And here we go. This is the beauty of this Momigami idea here. This is a Japanese technique of turning paper into a pliable fabric. And in this example, we haven't used any oils or starch or anything beyond just activating some of that PVA glue that is within. All right, so I'm just very cautiously, gently pulling this through, and what I've got to do is try and get these corners of my bag to come and just pop out. So I've got to be really careful because also I'm using a vintage paper which is liable to disintegrate at any given moment. Gently does it. I'm just pushing my finger in to try and see if I can get that last bit. And what I think I'll do is I'll take a paintbrush in a minute and see, but I don't want to make a hole in the paper, so I'm being really careful about this. Just pulling it gently. There we go, we can see where we've got to go with it. That's it, and there. I can't believe this has done this, guys. This is very exciting. Look how pliable that is. That just feels like leather. Whee, look, amazing. All right, and then we just work the material, because it's a brand new material. We've created that just by using some glue and some old tissue paper, and now we're turning it in to what could be an evening bag from Edwardian times. And then that's how it's looking. Right, now I want to make sure that it's the same size as my signature. So there is the pouch, and now I've just got to bring it in so that I'm happy with it, which will be there. Okay. And now we can put in some creases, sort of pressing it in. And then we can work out what we're doing with this bit here. Okay, so straight away I can see that I don't want to have these little pieces, so I'm just going to cut that away. And then I want to find something decorative to cover this piece up here and the top piece as well. So far so good. I'm just going to taper that bit in there without disturbing those stitches. Just taper that in. And then we're going to decorate that. Okay, I think this is a little bit too wide because I've got this lace which I would like to use, and I would like it to tuck in ever so slightly, and so I'm just going to reduce that down a little bit while we've still got some pliability here before everything dries. So I'll just take it off a little bit there, and then I'm just going to line the lace over the top of this with some fabric glue. Fabric glue here for my lace piece here. Just want to make sure that that fits exactly along that line. I don't particularly want to do any more sewing, but I could do a finishing top stitch across there if I wanted to, but I don't think it's necessary. We've got to remember we are still junk journaling. We don't need to be precise about these things at all. And it's just a bit of fun to develop something from nothing. Okay, so all we have used here to make that work is a piece of lace, and that is going to look like that. And then we're just going to remove any loose threads, and I'm going to now put the trim across the top, and then we're putting this pretty gold trim across the top, just making sure I get the right way around. Just putting some blobs of glue on the embroidery, trying to avoid the thin sheer fabric in between. And then I'm just going to add this onto the project, overhanging slightly off the edge, and just push that down. And here we have the finished pouch, and it looks like a leather purse. We've got a little piece of trim and some lace, and then we flip it up and we open it, and we've got a nice big bag to fill with all sorts of ephemera pieces and goodies, fabrics and all sorts. And then it just folds back down, and that is the purse or the pouch. That has come in at 10.5 centimeters, so that is the 4 1/4 inches that we were hoping for our little idea here. So it's fitting nicely and neatly within this project, and it is about 7.5 inches, guys, so that is 19 centimeters. It's like that on the back. It's got this wonderful texture. It could be grungy, but it's got an interesting historical feel to it. It is just a bit of fun. It's currently quite pliable. I'd imagine it will stay pliable because of the PVA glue used within that technique. And all you have used is 3 pieces of junk paper. So tissue paper, packaging paper from your delivery box, and then some other kind of paper, maybe an atlas, maybe some other decorative paper, wrapping paper, gift wrap, anything you want. It could even just be another fabric lining in there, and that is what we're getting this result. So it is still ever so slightly damp. It will dry and it will become firmer and maybe more stiff, but that is the project. It's been a lot of fun to make. So this is just one example of what you can do. You could use different tissue paper. That could be a whole other look, and I think I'll have a go at maybe making one out of this decorative paper and have a brightly coloured one, and then we can just put some more trim and things on the top of that. But you can use what you have to hand, but certainly have a go at that, and all you need is a little bit of school glue and off you go. Lots of fun, does not take very long. It can be an insert for any journal. It's incredibly thin. It can house a booklet or some interesting things in there, and then that could come and live in a journal. It could become a little tuck if you want, as well as a storage area for more interesting ephemera pieces. So there we go, interesting little fold. You could even put an eyelet further in there and have some lace or trim, something that binds it round, maybe from the middle bit, or just put some sewing there, and then you would have that coming through. We might do that, and then that could come round and be part of a closure. So that could come and be another interesting feature of it if you wanted to have that with something like that. So that could work, but I think it just looks quite nice plain, and I think it just doesn't need anything. There's a weight to it that is allowing that to shut, so that I think that is just great. Keep it simple and keep it fun, and keep it a quick project that you could have a go at just using some scraps that were otherwise destined for the rubbish. Okay guys, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found that inspirational. Do have a look at your decorative papers, your tissue papers and your waste papers in a different way, and see what you could turn them into today. Have fun with that idea. It's one of our projects to make here on the Treasured Page, just to have a go and see what can be achieved from very little. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you like watching my videos, do subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so that you're alerted when more videos are uploaded. Thank you very much for joining me. Do leave a comment below, and above everything else, just slow down and make crafting time for you. Bye bye now.